Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Buhari meets Biden at White House amid U.S.-Africa summit. Representatives reschedule Emefiele's appearance. Plus, EU prosecutor seeks to strip immunity from fellow MEP Kylie amid bribery scandal. Details of these stories and more in a moment. First, in our news tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari has met with the United States President Joe Biden in Washington, D.C. Photos shared by the presidency show President Buhari in a meeting with Biden and the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at the White House on the sidelines of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. The U.S.-Africa Summit, which began in 2014, is reportedly the most substantial commitment by a U.S. administration to boost its influence in Africa for almost a decade. According to the U.S. government, the summit will demonstrate the country's enduring commitment to Africa, as well as underscore the importance of U.S.-Africa relations and increase cooperation on shared priorities. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has met the leaders of African nations that hold elections in the new year to press for a free vote. On the sidelines of a summit that has brought most African leaders to Washington, Biden and his top aides met separately with a group of 6 leaders as part of his democracy push. The group included Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, who is ineligible to seek a 3rd term in February to lead Africa's most populous country, and President Felix Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo, who took office in 2019 in the vast country's first peaceful transfer of power. Also at the meeting are Gabon's Ali Ondimba, who has been president since 2009 after succeeding his longtime ruling father, and the leaders of Liberia, Madagascar, and Sierra Leone. Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, said the participation of the leaders did not necessarily indicate a separate development. Federal government has launched a survey to verify victims of terrorist attacks in Plateau State. The victims, mostly men and women, were seen trooping to the venue of the verification exercise in Jos, where the officials from the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development were on ground to attend to them. In an interview with reporters in Jos, the Minister Sadiya Farouk said the exercise was aimed at determining the appropriate intervention response for the victims. The minister noted that Plateau State had been experiencing insecurity in the form of attacks and bomb blasts for years, necessitating a meeting with the victims to interact and get their data. Away from that, now the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, says the federal government is owed approximately 5.2 trillion naira in debts. Ahmed stated this during a 2-day sensitization workshop on Project Lighthouse, organized for ICT and account staff in federal ministries, departments, and agencies across the North Central Zone in Mina. He said the debt was owed by over 5,000 companies and individuals. The minister, who was represented by the Director of Social Projects in the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Victor Omata, said the debts were from debtors spread across 19 ministries, departments and agencies. She stated that companies and individuals owing the federal government agencies had refused to honor their obligations. The legislative matters now, where House of Representatives has postponed the appearance of the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele to next week. The appearance was rescheduled today after Emefiele notified the lawmakers that he turned the new withdrawal limit policy. Emefiele's letter was read by Deputy Speaker Idris Wase, who presided over today's session. The lawmakers subsequently resolved that the CBN governor must appear on Tuesday to brief the entire House. From the judiciary, Justice Silvanus Origi of a High Court of the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja has declined to grant a motion seeking to stop the new cash withdrawal policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The application was brought before the court by 10 named applicants for themselves and on behalf of 20 million Nigerian citizens who do not use banks. Reports say although the decision by the court was taken on Tuesday, the court processes were obtained by journalists in Abuja today. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari, Attorney General of the Federation, Central Bank of Nigeria, and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Governor Emefiele, were listed as respondents. Still from the judiciary, an appeal court sitting in Port Harcourt has set aside the judgment of a federal high court that sacked the All Progressives Congress governorship candidate Tonye Cole and national and state assembly candidates. Recall that a court presided over by Justice Emmanuel Obile had on October 25 in Port Harcourt sacked the candidates of APC following a suit by George Olo and 5 others over their claims of exclusion from the party's delegate congresses. The Court of Appeal gave the decisions in 3 separate judgments on an appeal brought by the APC, the governorship candidate of the party, Tonye Cole, and the National and State Assembly candidates arising from the earlier judgment. The 3-man special panel of the Court of Appeal in their judgment, delivered by the lead judge, Justice Muhammad Lawal Shuaibu, said George Olu and 5 others did not exhaust the internal party mechanism before instituting the suit. Elsewhere, Federal High Court Abuja has dismissed a suit by a former Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba, and the Incorporated Trustees of Rights for All International RAI against the All Progressives Congress APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu and his People's Democratic Party PDP counterpart. Delivering judgment today, Justice Inyang declined jurisdiction on the grounds that the plaintiffs lacked the legal right to have filed the suit. Justice Akwo, who also described the suit as incompetent and proceeded to dismiss it, condemned the involvement of RAI, which claimed to be a non-government organization, in politically motivated cases. Away from that, the second Niger Bridge has been opened to vehicular movements. The 1.6 kilometers long bridge links Anambra and Delta states. The bridge, which was first proposed during the 1978 and 79 political campaign by then candidate of the National Party of Nigeria, Shehu Shagari, was opened this morning. People who passed through the bridge expressed delight and urged the present administration to complete it before May 2023. In the meantime, the federal government says construction work on the east-west road will gulp 200 billion naira, including 13 billion naira on the failed Eleme axis of the road. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, stated this during a visit to Rivers State to assess the state of work on the 38-kilometer Bodo-Boni Link Road under construction. Fashola expressed satisfaction at the speed and quality of work going on. He explained that funding for the 200 billion project was under a tax credit scheme arrangement between the federal government and Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas, though it was a full government project. Elsewhere, the federal government is looking to complete the concession of the $1.3 billion Zungeru hydroelectric power plant by March next year and commence operations by the second quarter of the same year. This follows the recent flagging off of the bid process by the Bureau of Public Enterprise. Reports say once the concession process is rounded off in March, the commissioning will be held in the second quarter of the same year. The Zungeru project, located at Zungeru, Niger State, is electric energy needs. The plant, which is funded by a loan from China's Exim Bank, is reportedly the biggest of its type in Nigeria. In politics now, the Independent National Electoral Commission has planned to spend 117 billion naira on electoral technologies in line with its decision to deploy the bimodal voter accreditation system and the result viewing portal in the 2023 elections. This comes as the Commission is also investing in cybersecurity systems to ward off attacks by hackers against its servers, website, and database. Recall that the INEC chairman Mahmood Yakubu had said there was no going back on the Commission's vow to use technology, including the bimodal voter accreditation system and result viewing portal in the forthcoming polls, despite protests by the presidential candidate and chieftains of a major political party. The INEC chairman, who announced this at a stakeholders conference on election result management, is some of them from as far as Asia. Still in politics, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) says Nigerians who registered for permanent voter cards (PVCs) more than once will not be issued new cards. INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner Oboy Fanga said this today while commenting on complaints by some Nigerians who are unable to collect their PVCs since the Commission resumed distribution for new registrants. Recall that INEC resumed the distribution of PVCs across Nigeria on Monday and is expected to end it on Sunday, 22nd January 2023. The exercise is part of the Commission's preparation for the 2023 general elections. Now, ahead of the 2023 elections, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Babar, today met with commissioners of police and heads of police formations in Abuja to strategize on election security. The meeting at the force headquarters was also attended by Deputy Inspectors General of Police, Assistant Inspectors General of Police, among others. It could be recalled that the IGP had on Tuesday met with stakeholders and emphasized on intelligence gathering in tackling security challenges. The IGP engaged in tactical meetings and conferences with various stakeholders to build solid standard operating procedures and strategic communication action plans towards a seamless electoral process next year. To financial crimes now, where the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) has so far recovered over 30 billion naira out of the 109 billion naira allegedly siphoned by the suspended Accountant General of the Federation, Idris Ahmed. The chairman of the commission, Abdul Rashid Bauer, stated this while appearing at the ministerial media briefing organized by the Presidential Communications team at the Presidential Villa, Abuja today. He gave highlights of the Commission's achievements from January through December 2022. The EFCC boss also said over 3,615 convictions were recorded within the period and affirmed the administration's seriousness about its anti-corruption program. He announced that the nationwide auction of forfeited automobiles will be followed by the disposal of over 150 houses to interested buyers. In a related development, the EFCC today said it had remitted at least once May 2022. The EFCC chairman, Abdul Rashid Bauer, revealed this to State House correspondents when he appeared at the 62nd session of the State House ministerial briefing organized by the Presidential Communication team at the Aso Rock Villa, Abuja. He said the recovered funds will be deployed into ongoing infrastructure projects such as the Abuja-Kaduna Road, Second Niger Bridge, and Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, amongst others. Now, as the Yuletide season approaches, the Department of State Services has asked Nigerians to conduct their activities in ways that promote public peace and safety. This is as it takes steps in concert with sister security agencies to maintain law and order across the country. At the same time, the agency has pleaded with community, religious and political bodies to preach peaceful coexistence, tolerance and unity. It also asked the groups to enlighten their members on safety measures during and after the season so as to prevent criminal elements who may want to capitalize on the festivities to wreak havoc or harm members of the public. Back here, the Nigerian Union of Journalists NUJ Akwa Ibom State has unveiled the official logo for its upcoming governorship debate in the state, while assuring transparency and calling for support from the media in seeing to the successful execution of the debate holding on the 29th of January 2023 at Ibom Icon Hotel and Golf Resort by 4 p.m. prompt. In his opening remarks, the Akwa Ibom State NUJ chairman, Amos Etuk, promised that the union would open its doors to all political parties to have access to it at all times. Now, delivering his remarks, the chairman, Akwa Ibom NUJ Political Committee, organizers of the Akwa Ibom, to the media to own the project aimed at the betterment of all Akwa Ibom. The committee chair stressed that the committee has collected no money from anyone and operates independent of any political influence. Udofia further noted that only qualified candidates by law will be fielded on the day of the debate. Also speaking, the Akwa Ibom State Nigeria Labour Congress Chairman Sonny James, amongst other partners of the political debate, reiterated their support for the initiative, which they concurred is primarily aimed at selecting credible leaders who will effectively steer the affairs of the state from 2023. High point of the debate, official Facebook page, contacts to reach the committee, official email address, and a Google Sheet for questions to be sent to the committee's question bank. A correspondent reports that the hashtag of the event was announced as hashtag AKS Gov Debate 2023.
The agenda is that we must have Akwa Ibom sons who are interested in consolidating on the gains of the foundations of our previous and present leader in making sure that the choices we make in 2023 will be the very best choice for who will succeed His Excellency Governor Dom Emmanuel. And with less than 83 days to March 11th of the governorship elections, today's unveiling of the logo formally gives the governorship debate an identity, formally gives the governorship debate a new narrative, and formally lets Akwa Ibom people to know that the countdown has formally started. I want to assure you that NUJ, in collaboration with our partners, will ensure that this debate will come out satisfactorily to everybody. I want to assure you that we will ensure that critical sectors that need to be addressed will be given responses by the candidates who will have the opportunity to be on the biggest stage, the biggest flag lights that will offer them and be seen globally. It is a debate that will bring Akwa Ibom to the world.
The committee has the privilege to have met three of the governorship candidates, but I have met all 6 of the governorship candidates and have spoken with them. They've given me the assurance.
And therefore, the Nigerian Labour Congress has refused to be subdued by anyone. And therefore, this is also the thinking of this committee, who has so far stand tall by not allowing anyone to say that this is so sponsor of the event. I am very glad and delighted to be part of it.
The agenda is that
Still to come in the news. Interest rates raised to highest level for 14 years. Do stay with us.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian. From issues on politics,
hello Nigeria, I remain committed.
Security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Coburn and Uyai Anyeken every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now in Africa, Tunisia's first president after the 2011 revolution, Monsef Mazouki, says he fears what may happen if he goes home. In an interview with newsmen ahead of Tunisia's parliamentary elections on Saturday, Mazouki said the country's current leader, Kais Saied, was part of a counter-revolution against the 2011 uprising. He accused Saied of attempting to return to the pre-revolution political system, starting with the new constitution the president introduced after a July referendum. Saied is a populist figure who was elected as Tunisia's president in 2019 on a platform that blamed the country's economic woes on the political elite that had run Tunisia since 2011, including people like Mazouki. Still in Africa, the International Criminal Court today threw out an appeal by Dominic Ongwen, a Ugandan child soldier turned commander in the Lord's Resistance Army, against his conviction and 25-year sentence for war crimes. Dominic Ongwen, who was himself abducted aged 9 by the rebel group led by the fugitive Joseph Kony, dressed in a dark suit and tie. Ongwen briefly waved to the public gallery, but otherwise remained impassive as he listened through headphones to the judgment. Now to Mozambique, where a member of a local force supporting a government operation was killed in clashes between Mozambique's security forces and the militants operating in the northern Cabo Delgado province. Privately owned Cadre de Mozambique reported. According to reports, the militants attempted to stage an assault against the army outpost in Nova Zambezia village, Macomia district, in a bid to steal weapons and supplies. Meanwhile, Mozambique's authorities are yet to issue a statement on the incident. In a separate development, the Democratic Republic of Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi has asked U.S. President Joe Biden to put pressure on Rwanda in order to stop its support to the M23 rebels. The two presidents spoke at a bilateral meeting during the ongoing U.S.-Africa summit in Washington. The U.S. has previously called on Rwanda to stop its support to the M23, while Kigali has continuously denied links with the rebels. Elsewhere, Liberia's largest prison, the Monrovia Central Prison, has begun turning away new inmates due to overcrowding and fears of disease outbreak. Justice Minister Frank Musa Dean told newsmen that those being denied admission to the facility were inmates accused of minor offenses. It follows local media reports that prison guards were refusing to admit new inmates as part of an ongoing strike over a delay of salaries, but prison officials have denied the claim. Reports say inmates at the facility include convicted murderers and armed robbers. Away from that, Libya's top law officer has ordered a probe into the handover of a Lockerbie bombing suspect Abu Aguila Masoud to the U.S. government. Abu Aguila Masoud is accused of making the bomb that downed Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in 1988, killing 270 people. Multiple sources have claimed that he was abducted from his home in November and held by a second militia group before being transferred to the U.S. Meanwhile, Lord Advocate Dorothy Bain has told the Scottish Parliament that Masoud's transfer to U.S. custody was lawful. However, Libya's Attorney General Sadiq al-Sur said his office had received a legal complaint over Masoud's removal. Workers have found 11 more bodies of people killed following floods on Tuesday night in the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kinshasa. The bodies were found in the northern Mont-Ngafula district of the city, where many houses are built on hillside areas that suffered landslides. The floods have been termed the worst in years witnessed in the city. Reports say nearly 30,000 households have been affected, with 280 homes swept away by the landslides. On the foreign scene, EU Chief Prosecutor has urged the European Parliament to strip two Greek members of their immunity from prosecution, including Eva Kaili, the face of a foreign bribery scandal. Prosecutor Laura Kövesi's office said Kaili, a socialist, and her conservative colleague Maria Spyraki were suspects in a separate case related to the payment of parliamentary assistance. Kaili has already been charged in a Belgian investigation into alleged bribes and said to have been paid by World Cup host Qatar to burnish its image and influence EU policy. In that case, a Belgian magistrate concluded that her parliamentary impunity would not apply, as she was allegedly caught red-handed with thousands of euros in cash. But in the separate issue of parliamentary allowances and assistance pay, she continues to enjoy protection to the bribery scandal. So on the foreign scene now, where members of the European Parliament have deplored that 90 years after the Holodomor, Russia is again committing horrific crimes in Ukraine. In a resolution adopted today, the European Parliament recognizes the famine inflicted by the Soviet regime on Ukraine in 1932 to 1933, known as the Holodomor, as genocide. The members of the European Parliament condemned the acts, which resulted in the deaths of millions of Ukrainians, and called on all countries and organizations that had not yet done so to follow suit and recognize it as genocide. Meanwhile, the Vatican has apologized to Russia for a comment from Pope Francis saying that their troops were the cruelest fighters in Ukraine. According to reports, Russia said today it had received the apology over Pope's comments last month that Russian soldiers from some ethnic minority groups were the cruelest fighters in the Ukraine conflict. At a briefing in Moscow, Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said Russia now considered the matter closed and hoped for a constructive dialogue between Russia and the Vatican. The Pope, 85, made the... Elsewhere, at least 22 people have died and several others have been hospitalized in India after drinking toxic alcohol. The deaths happened mainly in two villages in the eastern state of Bihar, where the sale and consumption of liquor are prohibited. Reports say such bans are in force in several Indian states, driving a thriving black market for cheap alcohol made in unregulated backstreet distilleries. And Vladimir Putin says his country will expand trade with new partners, including switching gas flows to eastern neighbors. In a televised speech, Putin said Russia would develop its economic relations with partners in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. He said Russia will remove restrictions in logistics and finance. Putin warned that by introducing sanctions, Western countries were trying to push Russia to the periphery of world development, but that his country would never take the route of self-isolation. Elsewhere, nurses in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland have begun the first of 2 day-long strikes over pay. Reports say staff will provide life-preserving and some urgent care, but routine services are likely to be disrupted in the biggest ever walkout by National Health Service nurses. According to reports, the Royal College of Nursing wants and retain nurses. The government says the group's demand is unaffordable and that it has met independent recommendations on pay. The strikes will reportedly run by December 15 and 20, with the biggest impact likely to be in pre-booked treatments such as hernia repair, hip replacements, or outpatient clinics. Still on the foreign scene, China has removed 6 diplomats from Britain, whom police wanted to question in connection to the alleged beating of a pro-democracy protester outside of the Chinese consulate in the English city of Manchester. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly told reporters that the move follows a request by the British government for China to waive diplomatic immunity and allow its diplomats to be interviewed by police. Recall that a confrontation occurred during a pro-democracy demonstration in support of Hong Kong outside of Manchester's Chinese consulate in October this year. Video of the incident showed one of the protesters being dragged into the consulate grounds before being beaten by a group of men. The Consul General Zheng Ziyuan later claimed that protesters had incited the violence with rude banners, and it was his duty to the stock market stories. Here is Blyden Ukem.
Thank you, Xavier Roberts. Good evening. It's another business day, and my name is Blyden Ukem. In the news, we begin with UK economy. The Bank of England has raised UK interest rates to the highest level for 14 years as it battles sustained soaring prices. It increased them to 3.5% from 3%, making the 9th time in a row it has hiked interest rates. The rise will mean higher mortgage payments for some homeowners and those with loans at a time when many people are struggling with the cost of living. It should also benefit savers if banks pass on the prices rise has been increasing at its fastest rate for 40 years as the cost of food and energy soars. To Tesla stocks. Multi-billionaire Elon Musk has sold another 22 million shares, worth $3.58 billion in the electric car maker Tesla. The shares were sold on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week, according to a filing with a U.S. financial regulator. It brings the total of Tesla stocks sold by Mr. Musk over the past year to almost $40 billion. Earlier this week, Mr. Musk lost his position as the world's richest person. He remains Tesla's biggest shareholder with 13.4% stake, according to financial market data provider. Nigeria accelerated for the 10th straight month to 21.47% in November of 2022 from 21.39% 0.09% in the prior month and above market estimates of 21.15%. It was the highest reading since September of 2005, attributed to food supply disruption, import cost hikes due to currency depreciation, and a rise in production costs. Mainly upward pressure continued to come from prices of food and non-alcoholic beverages, by far the most relevant component in the consumer price index baskets. Insecurity, climate change, and the devastating impact of severe flooding on farmlands this year, coupled with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, remain the key factors weighing on Nigeria's agricultural sector. Now to the CBN report. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has started releasing the redesigned Naira notes of 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1,000 Naira through commercial banks. The old Naira notes were redesigned to reduce the currency in circulation and outside the banking system. The governor of the Central Bank, Godwin Emefiele, complained that the 3.3 trillion Naira currency in circulation, Nigerians are hoarding 85%, representing about 2.75 trillion Naira outside Nigerian banks' vaults. To mop up the currency in circulation, which will help the financial regulator to control inflation, Emefiele announced in October that the redesigned Naira will be released on December 15th. It's time for the Nigerian stock market reports. At the basis points to close at 49,233.02 points. Well, compared with the previous trading day, today's data shows 153% improvement in volume, 27% improvement in turnover, but 3% decline in deals. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 26.8 trillion Naira. In aggregate, 107 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 20 gainers and 8 losers. CAP led the gainers with 9.88% share price appreciation, closing at 7% of 10% at 54 kobo per share. Sterling Bank recorded the highest volume of 153 million traded shares. This is all on business news. And back to Xavier Robert for the rest of the news.
Many thanks, Blyden. Still to come in the news. Mercedes named Mick Schumacher as reserve driver to Lewis Hamilton and George Russell for 2023. Let's stay with us. Hey, thanks for staying tuned. Now in health, federal government has said about 54 million Nigerians have been fully vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus, representing 53% of the targeted eligible population. It further stated that while 60 million Nigerians are partially vaccinated, representing 63% of the eligible population, Nigeria is getting closer to achieving its target of vaccinating 70% of eligible persons by the end of 2022. The Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, made these known during the agency's COVID-19 performance review meeting in Abuja. He also praised Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule for his contributions to ramping up COVID-19 vaccination and routine immunization in his state. So in health, the World Health Organization and United Nations say urgent action is required to achieve safe and sustainably managed water, sanitation and hygiene in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. According to the findings, this is important to prevent devastating impacts on the health of millions of people. This was contained in the WHO's of wash systems in more than 120 countries. The report said while 45% of countries were on track to achieve their nationally defined drinking water coverage targets, only 25% of countries were on track to achieve their national sanitation targets. Elsewhere, it has emerged that investments in malaria control avert deaths and reduce cases But many challenges stall the gains and progress in eliminating the disease in Nigeria. According to the WHO's 2022 malaria report, the tally of malaria cases has reached 247 million globally, with 619,000 deaths in 2021. It noted that the African region continues to carry a disproportionately high share of the global malaria burden. Nigeria and 3 other African countries accounted for just over half of all malaria deaths worldwide. However, the 2021 Nigerian Malaria Indicator Survey report showed that the malaria prevalence in the country decreased from 23 to 22%, but the fight against the life-threatening diseases far from over. According to the report, Nigeria still accounts for 27% of the global malaria burden and 32% of malaria deaths globally. In sports now, Mick Schumacher is to be the Mercedes reserve driver in 2023. The German, son of 7-time champion Michael Schumacher, lost his race seat for 2023 when the Haas team dropped him in favor of veteran Nico Hülkenberg. Reports say Schumacher's Mercedes role will see him work in the team's simulator and be ready to stand in should Lewis Hamilton or George Russell be unable to race. Schumacher raced for Haas for 2 seasons with the best result of 6th place at the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix. Still in sports now, Saudi Arabia looks set to host the opening race of the 2024 Formula One season in a change from previous plans for it to be held in Australia. The news emerged in a statement from the Victorian state government announcing a 2-year contract extension for the Australian Grand Prix until 2037. The statement said Melbourne's Albert Park track would host the opening race at least 4 times during the contract term, but that Saudi Arabia would do so in 2024 out of respect for Ramadan. Bahrain, which borders Saudi Arabia, has become the default opening race of the season since the pandemic disrupted the shape of the calendar in 2020. It held its race on 20th March this year. But Ramadan, the Muslim holy month, is due to start on 11th March in 2024, as opposed to 2nd April this year. Elsewhere, UEFA and FIFA have received significant backing in their battle to block the creation of a European Super League. In a report released by the European Court of Justice, its Advocate General said the rules of football's European and world governing bodies were compatible with EU competition law. Athanasios Rantos gave his observations after a court case earlier this year brought by ESL and its backers A22. Meanwhile, the final ruling will be made by a 15-member ground and players who joined a breakaway league. Now in entertainment, actor Henry Cavill has been dropped as Superman by the new bosses of DC Studios less than 2 months after he announced his return to the role. Cavill shared this on Instagram, expressing his disappointment because he was told by the studio to announce his return back in October. He, however, wished the new owners the best of luck. According to reports, Gunn and Safran took over DC Studios in late October, just after Cavill made a surprise appearance as the Man of Steel during the credits of the Dwayne Johnson film Black Adam. Still on entertainment, the highly anticipated special Big Brother Titans TV reality show that will feature housemates from Nigeria and South Africa will premiere on January 15, 2023, and the winner will get over 500 million naira. The organizer, MultiChoice Nigeria, made the announcement today at the Media Parley in Lagos. Announcing the commencement of the show and prize money, the Chief Executive Officer, MultiChoice Nigeria, John Ube, said the BB Titans edition will run for 72 days. And finally, Nigerian Afrobeat singer Ahmed Ololade, popularly known as Asake, has been named Audiomark's 2022 Artist of the Year. According to the streaming service, Asake deserves the gong for his wholesome introduction to the batch of blockbuster songs he provided in 2022 and his excellent musical performances. It featured tracks. Asake, who joined the YPNL label in January, first caught the attention of. That's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Roberts, wishing you a terrific night rest. Bye-bye for now.